You are Locked On HAWKS POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good evening, Hawks fans. Appreciate you guys for tapping in. What you do, man. DeShaun Tate, you guys are watching the official Atlanta Hawks postcast, in which we saw a stinker one on tonight. A lot of this stuff I like to go ahead and jump right in and get right into it. Seen a stinker on tonight, but first, before we go into the nuts and bolts, the steak and potatoes, the details of tonight's game, just want to remind you guys, obviously, not only what you're watching, but also who it is brought to you by. This episode of the official Atlanta Hawks postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, where from the whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes this NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com in order to get started. Now, that being said, let's dip right in, because I know that I've been, really kind of thinking about the breakdown of this game, and I know what everybody's going to point to. Obviously, the elephant in the room, that's going to be our first segment up. After that, we're kind of going to jump into the dry erase board, in which this does give you a little bit of wiggle room and time to think about that particular segment on the other side of the break. What does that mean? The dry erase board. Dry erase board, essentially meaning if I give you a dry erase marker, dry erase board, to name where you would start, barring the injuries aside, because we're going to talk about that as the elephant in the room. Outside of the injuries, what is the first thing that you would address with this team outside of just a clean bill of health status? So that'll be in our second segment. Take a break, and obviously right after that, we'll get into what we appreciate about this team. And I'm glad that I wanted to really kind of touch on that topic, because this should be one that I feel like should be somewhat interesting to try and see if somebody can find some silver lining within this team and what we've seen, not only outside of inside of this game, but on the outside of it, what we've seen so far leading up to, the next 10 games, All-Star weekend or what have you, how they need to close that out, what we appreciate about this team all the way up until this point, obviously 44 games in. So let's jump right in. The elephant in the room being the injuries. What you got? I am one that is is more so living on the side of the fence of which I don't like to put everything on the injuries. I understand, I overstand the importance of having the Jimmies and the Joes on the floor. At the same time, guys being healthy, guys having a clean bill of health, being able to go out there and be productive, can't do a whole lot of that when you're in street clothes, right? And I understand that. I get that. I think that it's more than just that, though, with this team. I think that there are some realistic possibilities that we've seen this team peak early. That being said, I don't think that this is the only run that they have in them. But a loss like this, injuries or not, and I get it, everybody's professional basketball players, and it's kind of got that any given Sunday mode and kind of feel that vibe and that energy to it, where anybody can lose a game. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, it's about pride by any means with this team, because listen, I mean, Toronto came into this game 12 wins, I think it is. 12 and 32 or something along those lines, searching, hunting for a win. And not only that, but they also knew how to go about doing it, because they just did it, 48 hours ago, right? So I think that that's just another piece to it. However, when you lose to a team like the Toronto Raptors, I don't think that we as Hawks fans have felt this way since probably the back-to-back games loss against the Washington Wizards. It almost makes you feel like that team is so bad and the Hawks have been so improved over the season. And I get it, a big part because of the guys that they don't have on the floor, but that they should still be able to win those basketball games, right? And I know that that's going to sound completely disrespectful to the Toronto Raptors. I get it. And they are just kind of showing that they have groomed themselves a little bit more, even since the very first game that they played in Toronto, when they played them in Canada, right? Understand that you're losing what you're losing. Let's talk about it. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists from Jalen Johnson, 19 points, 4 rebounds from DeAndre Hunter, 10 points, 3 rebounds from Zachary Risachet, right? 3 guys that, while 2 of the 3 may only be starters, all the way up until very last minute of last year, we saw all 3 of those guys being starters, right? I won't go as far as to say, however, though, that it's just that simple, because one of the reasons is one of those guys, being DeAndre Hunter, hasn't shot it particularly well over the course of the last, 5 or 6 games. In his last 5 games, specifically from the perimeter, from 3-point range, you got a DeAndre Hunter who shot 28% at Phoenix, 12% from 3 at Boston, 57% against New York on the road, 0% from 3. Let me say that again. 0% from 3, which was like 0 for 9 or something crazy like that, right? Against Detroit. And then obviously, I think against Toronto, he went like 2 for 4 or something crazy like that. So that doesn't automatically mean you insert him into this position and then they're all of a sudden gonna, beat Toronto. The chances of them being able to beat Toronto obviously gonna be greater, but I don't necessarily love it, right? Can we blame everything on the injuries? Is it as simple as just blaming it on the injuries? And I don't know. I guess I don't think so. And who do you blame for this? Nobody's going out there getting hurt intentionally. Obviously, the opposition's not going out there trying to injure guys by no stretch of the imagination. Freak accidents are happening. Guys are hurting their hands. Guys' shoulders are popping out. These are just things that just inevitably are going to happen. It's a long season, obviously. However, because you don't have that backup piece, and I think while I was out, we had a chance to have, Tanisha on and brought on Macy O'Hurd, who I'm graciously appreciative of for coming through in a clutch moment. But to talk about what this team needs to seek out more as we start getting closer to the trade deadline, is that backup point guard position to help assist Trae Young? Is that some help in the front court where I feel like you have more than enough guys? And I get it, some guys are banged up. One guy comes back, the next guy's banged up. You're kind of lucky to get what you're getting out of Onyeka Okongwu. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Clint is just coming back. I felt like, I get it, he's not 100% probably right now. They just needed some bodies. That's why you saw him not only not in the starting lineup, but saw him in limited action on tonight. But even more so, the simple fact that, you do have, while David Roddy is not necessarily considered a big body kind of guy, that they should still be in preparation. Like, they never put themselves in position to be able to consider themselves having a lot of offensive talent in the front court on that side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball. So, I some people will feel like, and I appreciate Must Love Fiction for tapping in, team is playing with no heart. I don't know if it's that simple either. It's kind of sad to see. I hope that they perk up and get some chemistry back. Me too. I don't think that chemistry more so is the issue. Appreciate, MLF for coming through and showing some love. It would be nice to see them perk back up, and we all understand that they have to have the pieces out there on the floor. It's just that when and give credit, to the farm system, as I know Tanisha is obviously puts in a lot of really good work and spends a lot of time over there in College Park with the Skyhawks. But they're only going to be so much of a bonus to your team when you're relying upon the farm system. Like, sometimes you got to go and get the NBA guys to come in and fill in for the NBA guys. I think having Plowden is great. I think having Barlow is great. I think having Wallace is great. Like all of this stuff, the extra contribution and the cherry on top, whatever they give you is kind of like a bonus. I think that all that stuff is cool. It sounds cool. It looks cute, right? But you have to have that next guy to be able to step up, and they can't always be G League talent. We saw in the first game or the last game against, the Toronto Raptors, was it Dominic Barlow came in and had like 11 points or something crazy like that. Felt like a career night for him. You can't continue to just try to rely on the same thing. What is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So definitely appreciate him for checking in. Another bad loss, Robert. I probably couldn't have said it any better than that. I'm glad that also you tapped in and said, that this loss was worse than the Washington games. I'm not sure I'll go that far only because of the injury situation. But I do understand where you say, you feel like that the effort was not there. And there are some games, and maybe the effort wasn't all the way there. Sometimes it does feel like this team kind of sleepwalks through some of their games a little bit, right? Even when they're completely healthy, if I'm being honest, and every NBA team is going to have moments like that. Cleveland being the top team in the East, I think they still are going to have, games that are kind of like that at some point, right? Everybody's going to have some stinkers from time to time where it looks like they just never even got on the plane or never even got on the bus or just never showed up at the arena. Or you could have picked 5 guys out of the arena, out the stands, and gave them some uniforms and told them to run out there, and they could have done better. There's going to be instances where the frustration kind of builds up as a fan that those things are going to happen. But this may be the closest thing that I can get when we're comparing it to the Washington Wizards game, where it feels like I feel like I can use injuries as an excuse in this one instance, right? Because of what you're missing. You're missing not only a good amount of guys. I mean, guys are going out there. There's no secret that Larry Nance wasn't 100% tonight. It's no secret that Clint Capela was probably forced to play on tonight just to give his team any little bit of energy or any little bit of anything that he had within him in order to, try to uplift the team. So that's just, that's just another piece to it. But also MLF saying that it's not just the injuries, blame is on everyone, coaches and team. I agree with that. No synergy and not playing for the team nor for each other. No urgency, sloppy turnovers. I'm mad that you got to it before I did, because we're going to talk about that here in a minute on the other side of the break. And just playing with a low basketball IQ, and I see some of that, but there are some other things that are alarming to me that I definitely want to get into, because I want to pick you guys' brains a little bit on the other side of this break, because this one is one that I'm really interested in, and I want people to put their thinking caps on, their coaches caps on. I'm sure we got some, coaches in here or some that have probably have a little bit of history and some coaching as well. But getting ready to finish up here, I thought that some of the keys to tonight's game was, number one, David Roddy and Larry Nance. And I get it, the hand issue for Larry Nance, but I thought the mixture between both of those guys, especially with Clint coming back, had to have at least a minimum of 20 points combined. They finished with 8. Already limited in the front court, knowing that you need to be able to use your experience in any way that you possibly can. I don't feel like they really maximized that as a team, being the more experienced team on tonight. By the way, when you was talking about those injuries you're missing between Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, and Zachary Risachet, what are we talking about here? Seriously, about 50 points collectively between the 3 of those guys, something really crazy along those lines. So this one definitely stings. It definitely hurts. This is one that you don't necessarily want to go back and watch. Bogey was not good on tonight either. That was equally frustrating, because at some point we have to start, stop talking about, oh, well, he's not cutting it right now. He played a lot of basketball. He played a lot over the summer as well, and this and that. That can't continue to be the same excuse. You had a guy like a Scotty Barnes who, definitely looked like an all-star on tonight. 24 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists from him. Dyson Daniels, who has 3 of his last 5 games, with the exception, obviously, of tonight having 20 points, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists from him. And then, like we said, that combination of Larry Nance and Clint Capela, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 4 for 15 from the field. I don't want to show everybody what I have for dinner on tonight, if I'm really just being honest, but those are numbers that bring me to the point of which it looks like why we saw what we saw on tonight. You couldn't afford for, you need your bench to come in and contribute all the things that you need your bench to come in and to contribute to the way that they have been all season. And I get it. Usually they're not playing in the roles that they are playing or as many minutes or with the same duties and responsibilities as they're forced to on nights like tonight. However, you got the green light to shoot if your last name is Matthews. I can't afford for you to be able to replicate or duplicate what you did in that very first game. By the way, 0 points, 0 for 3 from 3. Well, I guess you didn't exactly duplicate what you did on Thursday night. You actually pitched in 3 more points and instead shot 1 for 5 from 3. So, I think it's definitely on everybody, but certainly want to give some credit to Vit Krejci, who looks like he was in rhythm tonight, had some confidence, came with a little bit of energy, was in the ebbs and flows within the game, and was loose on defense as well. So there is some silver lining to some degree, but I would definitely say that, they definitely didn't, get back and play defense. If you're not hitting on offense, so be it, but you got to be able to defend. Toronto Raptors scoring 120. What are we looking at? What was the first game? What was the first game that we were looking at from the other night? I feel like they scored about 120 points in each of those games. That's something that just cannot continue to happen. Let's go ahead and jump over to the break, man, so we can get a little bit of intel, a little bit, and get some questions thrown around to a couple of you guys about putting your coaching hats on and seeing where you will go in terms of this dry erase board. And pretty sure that I certainly trust within you guys that you guys got some really interesting things to say. So let's go ahead and get to that on the other side of this break. As we nearly conclude the first month of the new year and prepare for the second, a little extra tokens in the pocket is something everybody can use. Well, not just because you'll likely be expected to dig down deep in the pockets for that special somebody on the 14th, but also because it seems like price inflation on pretty much, just about everything is going up. Who couldn't use some extra cash? The perfect place to turn is none other than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, especially as we near the end of the NFL postseason. Got some pretty big games going on tomorrow as well. That should be really interesting. Get started today, especially with the big conference championship games in the NFL tomorrow to determine who's going to advance to the Super Bowl. It's not too late to place some bets, parlays, over-unders, point spreads, etc. So if you've been searching for a home and don't feel like waiting until tax season for a little extra more in the pocket, look nowhere else other than FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a dub. It's so thrilling. I'm telling you, you got to check it out. I even thought about putting me in a ticket or two. I did a little something earlier. Got to see what tomorrow's going to look like, because I didn't do so well on tonight. Nonetheless, Not only that, but you can also bet on who will win the game, but also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, so much more. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Perfect. I'm glad we're going to jump into this segment now because this is one of the ones that I was probably most forward and looking forward to. That is my. I like to think this little fill in the blank segment here, right, where I want the people to address this blank before anything. Obviously, we can't say the injuries. What is? I give you a dry erase marker and a dry erase board. Again, injuries not included. I give you a dry erase marker and a dry erase board and says, what is the thing that probably needs to be addressed or probably needs to be fixed first? And I think in this situation, it's probably a 1A and a 1B for me. I don't think that you can be in too many situations in a game like tonight where you have 24 turnovers, right? 24 turnovers, or to shoot the ball as atrociously as you have from the free throw line. I've seen games where this team didn't shoot it well from the charity stripe, and they were able to still pull out some W's, right? I get it. They had guys, but those are the freebies. I call them the free space on a bingo card. You got to be able to knock that down. When you're playing a team like Toronto, losing is one thing. But in the first game where they're out shooting you from the field, they're out shooting you from three, they're out shooting you from the free throw line, they're getting more rebounds than you are, they're getting more assists than you are, more fast break points in that category, and more paint points in that category. All of those particular categories, again, running back through. From an efficiency standpoint, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, right? Rebounds, assists. I'm running out of fingers here. Fast break points and paint points. Yet again, replicating the exact same thing, went out there and laid an egg in that department again, where the Toronto Raptors outscored them in each of those particular categories. Can't afford to happen. The first one is the one that's probably should be considered the easiest. It's the free throw line. And I've said it multiple times here on this show, in which I really feel, and people say, oh, you just blowing smoke, you just capping, right? Promise you I'm not. I would rather take an ill-advised, poor selection shot than to give the ball to the other team. The two things that has to change for this team and must be addressed, if I had to just throw out there one word, I would have such a tough time. Not because there's all these plethora of so many different things, but because some of the most important things when it comes to winning a basketball game, only in my opinion, is being able to hit clutch shots in clutch moments that can determine the outcome of a game. I get it. Maybe this one was not necessarily by a possession, similarly to the last game against Toronto was. I understand that. I get it, right? Nobody's going to eat your lunch for that. But to do it yet again, you can't continue to play the same way, in which I give them credit for sticking to their guns and playing the same way a lot of the times in terms of their play style. But what they can't afford to do is to continue to go out there and go to the free throw line and shoot as poor as they did from the free throw line. What did they shoot tonight? 68% from the stripe. My great grandmother can shoot better than 68% from the stripe. And she's no longer with us. You understand what I'm saying? Professional basketball players. Nobody's out there in front of you. I get it. Pressure. It sounds easy for me to say from the lazy boy. I got my feet kicked up eating a bag of potato chips, whatever, what have you, right? Watching other guys go out there and run up and down 94 feet, right? And then got to turn around and put them on the free throw line when they're huffing and puffing. I know that that's difficult. I'm not trying to treat it as such. However, if you're going to be this bad in so many other areas, those are the areas that you have to be good, because you have to practice. You have to play how you practice, and you have to be able to knock those free throws down and not turning the ball over and giving it to the other team. 24 turnovers is absurd. Like that's atrocious. That's ridiculous, right? That's, there's going to be instances where you're going to have games where there's just more than you just want and need or what have you, right? In terms of turnover category. But, you know, dribbling the ball and not being your night, and just on a fast break, you bounce the ball off your shoe, it goes out of bounds. Things happen sometimes. I understand that. But where it just looks like you're giving the ball to the other team, and they wanted it more. Look at all the pieces that they had on Trae Young on tonight, right? In situations. You had your Bruce Brown, really good defender. You had your Davion Mitchell, known for being a good perimeter defender as well. Jamal Shed, right, was a really good defender coming out of college, right? I think defensive player of the year, something along those lines. Scotty Barnes, with his awkwardness and just, build and long arms and everything else, got some experience under his belt, been in the league at least 3 years now by this point. These are some of the little things that I think made it very difficult for Trae Young, being a guy who for the first time in his career had 0 assists for the first 3 quarters. That's when it's not your night, it's not your night. Clearly, it wasn't their night. But what they can't afford with tougher games and tougher opponents in front of them is to be able to afford that this can't be their night again either. Some moves got to be made. If nothing, if you're Landry Fields and whoever, right now it feels like the blind leading the blind. If you're Landry Fields or whoever or whatever, and you're these decision makers, I don't care if it's Grant Hill, Landry Fields, Steve Koonin, the owner's wife, the owner's son, Kyle Korver. I don't care. You got to put somebody in place to be able to bring some sort of assistance. I get it. You wanna get Atlanta Hawks culture type guys gonna play together and this, that, and the other. You can't go without point guards, and you can't go without bigs. The two most important. The wings are a dime a dozen. You can find those anywhere. If DeAndre Hunter's having an off night, you can kind of bring in a 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guy, play the wing, this, that, whatever, what have you. But your meat and potatoes behind why teams win championships or get to the playoffs or are successful in the playoffs, because you got to be successful in the regular season and so forth. I think that those are things that you have to be able to address. To be in a situation as such where you don't have either one of those things, I respectfully, disagree with. That's just something that just honestly shouldn't be happening. So, I mean, that's just the way that I feel about that. Mr. Against All Odds 78. Look at the Raptors roster, not their record. Respect it. The Raptors aren't going to roll over just because of their record. I get that too, being extremely hungry. They aren't afraid of Trae Young. That was made very clear on tonight, and they weren't afraid of the Atlanta Hawks. They had the recipe. They had the blueprint. They knew what it takes to beat this team. They just did it. They didn't have to go into all this crazy traveling. They stayed right here. They didn't have to, leave, go to another city, come back. They were comfortable, right? I don't know if they hit the Gentlemen's Club or not, but they were comfortable right here where they were. So, appreciate you for tapping in there as well. And definitely want to get ready to jump over here to where we do appreciate this team, because there are some areas where we do appreciate this team. But what are the areas that is probably the most underappreciated by this Atlanta Hawks fan base? Let's go ahead and get ready to jump into that on the other side of this break. As we all know, therapy can be a game changer. It helps us manage the stress, improve the sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a bit of a challenge. And that's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need not only easy, but also accessible and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is so simple, and you can match that with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within about 48 hours. It's super convenient, and you can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, there's also a plus. Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. Say it again, $0 copay. It's never been easier to excuse me, prioritize mental health. So as a listener to this postcast rather, let them know I sent you DeShaun Tate from the official Atlanta Hawks postcast. You'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/locked on NBA and enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Just go to Talkspace.com/locked on NBA and enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off of your first month and show support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/locked on NBA, promo code SPACE80. Cool. Appreciate you guys for circling back around. For those of you who have been here for a while, are going to listen to this later. Thank you guys for chiming in and checking out the show. Let's talk about where this team is appreciated. Who is the most appreciated as of late in these last few weeks? Who's the most, or what is the most underappreciated aspect about this team? I'm gonna go with the first piece being who is the most underappreciated. I think right now the job that Oyeka Okongwu has doing, I have to mention him and look like an idiot with my hand raised in the air for the simple fact that I've been hard, in terms of just being very highly critical on Oyeka Okongwu, not bringing the defense or the offensive intensity, looking good when he's playing, against guys like Giannis and looking like an X factor and helping win games from that standpoint, but looking like a totally different player the next game, not seeing that same player that we saw against Giannis until about, what feels like 8 to 10 games later. I'm beginning to see some consistency. One of the biggest concerns that I had while everyone was yelling about, get rid of Clint, get rid of Clint. I'm like, and replace him with who? A guy that looks like he's not ready. That guy has been looking ready. Obviously, we'll talk about what he did on tonight. Didn't do as well of a job on Chris Boucher as I probably would have liked him to, obviously. But nonetheless, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, only missed 3 shots on the night, 7 for 10. And he's just been looking like a different player from a confidence standpoint. I get it. He's left out there on the floor a little bit longer, but what he has done with the pairing between he and DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench, I think has been really, really key for this team. And he's just, let's just be honest, he's starting to look more and more like a guy who is comfortable shooting, not only shooting the basketball from close range, but also from deep from time to time. Maybe falls in love with it a little bit too much sometimes, but nonetheless, I love the progression that we've seen out of him. Because remember, when we had Al Horford in an Atlanta Hawks uniform, he wasn't quite the 3-point shooter either. And then he kind of got with the, shooting coaches, and he developed into that a little bit more as he got older in his career. I see something similar like that out of Oyeka Okongwu. And then give some credit to a guy like Vit Krejci. I mean, we talked a little bit about his rhythm, his confidence, his energy, playing within the flow of the game. I think that has been really good. He's been shooting 47% from the 3-point range in the month of January. He picked that back up on tonight, going 6 for 11. So give him some credit. He's been one of the more consistent starters, as we have been seeing, Zachary Risashe being out, and And some instances where Dyson Daniels might be out for a game or two and they need somebody to come in and play into that starting lineup role, deciding to go smaller where Jalen Johnson's now not on the floor, getting injured after just coming back, and all these other things. So I think that has been something that's been good. Just kind of curious to know what you guys think as we get ready to close out the show here in just a quick second. Let's see here. MLF, Must Love Fiction, saying underappreciated the good ball movement. I think they've done a great job at spacing the floor. Probably not moving it well in the sense of making sure that they're giving it to one another effectively, but I think that the spacing, like they have the right idea. And I don't know if this is where you're going with it, Must Love Fiction, but I think that they have the right idea of what they want to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And when it looks really good, it looks really good. When it doesn't, clearly it doesn't. I think that's obvious. We saw that on tonight. But I do believe that when you watch the way that their scheme and that their system is set up, it looks like they're doing all the right things. That's where I think you've seen the growth from Trae and getting other guys involved. Not saying obviously the facilitator and distributor that he is, but it's not just him. Jalen Johnson becoming a better player at distributing the ball. DeAndre Hunter is becoming a better player at distributing the ball. We saw Vit Krejci with some really sweet dimes on tonight. So again, I think that there are some instances where we need to see them do better ball protection, but not as much in terms of just moving the ball, sharing it amongst one another. I think they've been elite at that. The dedication from V on both ends of the floor. Credit to Vit Krejci, where I think he definitely doesn't get enough love. And again, I was highly critical on him when I was on other podcasts before, calling him number 99. I know his number is not 99, but that's what I was going with. He's earned my respect, particularly, especially for this season when other guys have gone down, just not being scary and just being confident, and it looks like that's growing more and more every game. Dyson Daniels' offense being one that's improving. We touched on that, how many games he had with 20-plus points. Everybody is getting the steals, even if we don't capitalize on them in Trae's blocks. Yeah, the steals is a big piece because they're one of the, not just Dyson Daniels, who we obviously all know, kind of sets that standard and that precedence for this team in terms of that being infectious energy that's rubbing off on the other guys. But that's just something that takes technique and effort. And I think that is something that we're seeing. And that's what's kind of leading to a lot of these steals. Appreciate everybody for coming through, man, and joining me. Hopefully see you guys in the next 48 hours again to be able to break down the game on what's coming up next. What do we have here? Looks like it's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves at Minnesota on the road. Know that they played earlier on tonight, so they'll be waiting for Atlanta because Atlanta gave them a little bit of a tough time on the last one. So Atlanta going back on the road, and hopefully these 48 hours can help get some guys healthy. If not, looks like it could be a long night, but guess we're just going to have to wait and see when Monday night rolls around. Appreciate you guys, everybody, for coming through. Show them some love. And even for some of those of you who will go back and listen a little bit later. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace out. A-Town down.